हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Namaste everyone. Today is Pi Day. It's actually celebrated all across US colleges and other places. So 3.14. So the US, the way they date is they put the month before the days and then the year. So today everybody is celebrating and wearing these it's Pi Day shirts. So I thought that was interesting. So today we'll be looking at our final Dhyana Shloka, the ninth one, and then we'll quickly play the Dhyana Shloka and read it alongside, and we'll jump into value of values as we spoke about last week. So I'll just share my screen. I already have everything ready. So let's just play the Dhyana Shlokas first, I suppose.
पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दम् कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारत पङ्कजं कलिमलं प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः.
Okay, so let me just place down the order in which we can proceed based on how I see it over here. So yeah, so the way I see this is sorted, it's alphabetical, except for the fact that the one who is presenting is always last on the list. So this makes it very intuitive. So we left off at I think we should begin reading the 9th verse because we completed the 8th one. Last time we did the first, no, not the first. I think we did the first 6 in the class before the last one, and then in the last class we covered 2 of the verses because there was a lot of discussion which we had, which was very helpful anyway. And we discussed about Kalaha and the different measurements of time and other related topics. So today, Abhinavji, could you, yeah?
Yeah, I think we didn't cover the invisible result of prayer, right?
Oh, right. We stopped over here.
I think we stopped with how does grace come to you?
I see. Yeah, so if you can read this paragraph, maybe we can discuss it.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The invisible result of prayer. In a prayer, what you really release is an invisible force causing the adrikta phala, the unseen result. The very system, the laws that produce certain results which are not visible to us are reorganized by prayer. Certain elements are introduced through prayer into this invisible system, causing it to reorganize itself. However, we do not know how it will be reorganized. This is why the results are said to be caused by grace. Grace, therefore, is something that we receive purely as a result of our own karma. Actions done either in our immediate past or in the remote past. Because of this result, this grace, certain situations happen in our favor. What is generally taken to be impossible is made possible by grace. In fact, all life is like that. The impossible is made possible. With this verse, I salute Bhagavan, the one by whose grace the mute becomes eloquent, and the lame scales mountain tops. The one by whose grace the impossible is made possible. The final verse of the Gita Dhyanam describes the various beings who praise this all-knowing Lord.
Right. Thank you. So this is
Should I
very
continue?
straightforward, right? I think we'll just say keep rotating.
Okay.
So this kind of tells us the effect of mantras if we recite also, right? Even that's the karma that you make, I mean. Will
Sorry,
that also
so
add?
yeah. So prayer, I think Pujya Sabji spoke earlier in this document itself, I believe that it has 2 results, right? One is the drashta phala and the other is adrashta phala. So for example, let's say something is going really wrong in a person's life, just for argument's sake, and the person takes recourse in Ishvaraha. So, he goes and he prays and he sits in a corner and he may think of Bhagavan. So that immediately gives rise to some sort of satisfaction. It temporarily ceases to worry you because you're focusing on Bhagavan at that point, and you already feel a little bit of a release. You feel relieved, you feel a bit, your tension is a little released. So that is an immediate result of prayer. But also what you're asking for in the prayer, for instance, like if you're saying Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, right? So there is an intention involved, and that also gives rise to a result because ultimately an action is being done. Or you could have a prayer, or even this could also include yajnas. So when you perform a yajna, there may not be an immediate result, but then we have something called Kariri Yajna, which brings rain to your place. So I'm glad you actually brought this up, because I wanted to share an anecdote that Pujya Swamiji shared. Swamiji was part of a very traditional family, and his grandfather was well known in the whole village district, and he was a great scholar. Now, and Swamiji was a very bright student. He studied Sanskrit, he studied Shastras, he knew how to recite the mantras and everything. But he initially, when he was a young lad, or not a young lad, but maybe in his teens, I'm not exactly sure what time frame it was, but he was not he did not have a lot of Shraddha in the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. So he always saw Vedanta as very logical and sensible, but he wasn't very sure about the Karma Kanda, that, can yajnas produce results and so on. So we usually, when we say we have Shraddha in the Vedas, right? Not just Vedanta. So he approached a Pandit, and the Panditji said that, if you collect, this was a very dry part of India in the dry season, it wasn't the monsoon. So the Panditji said that collect 500 rupees so that I can gather samagri, because it was a very elaborate ritual. It wasn't an ordinary small yajna that gets over in a few hours. So, and during that time, I think in the early 50s or the late 40s, I'm not sure exactly when, 500 rupees was a big deal. For many of us, 500 rupees is a big deal today. That time it was worth a lot. So Pujya Swamiji, approached his relatives and his friends, and they scraped together 500 rupees. He presented that to the Panditji in order to perform the yajna. And while they were performing the yajna, the Purnahuti, before they offered the Purnahuti, the rains doused out the fire. And no, not just that, it only rained in that region, in that small little patch of land where they were performing the yajna, whereas everywhere else it was dry. So, after that, Pujya Swamiji said he never questioned Karma Kanda again, because this is not something that you go out and test, because we see today that a lot of scientists are trying to perform experiments to see if there is an unseen result, or a seen result, or a direct result of your actions. But if you have Shraddha in something, we know that, the Shastra says if you do something with the right attitude, then definitely there will be a result. So this invisible result could be in the form of yajnas, it could be in the form of mantra japa, it could be in the form of even your day-to-day actions. Like if you perform some act of a good deed, then definitely there's a result which gets accrued and comes back to you later on. So. Um, oh, I think half of the people dropped out. Some internet connection.
Prashant, it looks like there's some problem because somebody's complaining that she's been trying, but she gets a message saying that the moderator has
Lost the call, Prashant bhai. She says that she's getting message that moderator rejected the call.
Moderator rejected the call. Who's messaging?
Shalini ji. Yeah.
Okay. Let me quickly send her, or if maybe somebody else who's not reading could please copy paste this link and send it to her, the one I just pasted on the side. It'll invite her back to the call. I don't know if you could just send it to the Facebook group, please.
Yeah, I can. I'll do it.
Or I'll just have to really quickly once.
I mean, it's there on the group, right?
Yeah, I mean this link was there, so I don't see how.
Yeah, she could join again.
But I do see that a couple of people have dropped. So.
But something like this happened to me last week.
Okay.
But that happened towards the end of the session, and I was not able to join, and said the group is full. I mean, there's no chance of that happening. Right? If I drop out, there should be one vacancy.
Exactly. So here I see Shalini Mishra left the group chat, and here I see she has been removed from this video call. So I don't know if maybe somebody inadvertently pressed a button, but
I think even Smita and TG also dropped out.
I see. Yeah. I guess if somebody just in the background, we can try. Wait, I'll just. Okay. Okay, I guess we'll continue in the meantime.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I think pertaining to the discussion we were having, so it's not just the result which a yajna gives, but also the so the attitude with which you perform the yajna that also contributes to the adrishta phala. For example, you automatically think of some certain attributes of Ishvara when you perform an yajna, and he is viewed as the phaladata. So in that sense, you start associating certain attributes with Ishvara, and most often it is a positive attribute, and your focus starts shifting more and more towards those positive attributes. So in that sense, you do gain qualifications for so automatically your affinity towards the negative attitudes come down, and so automatically you start gaining some qualifications, the Samadhi, Satyasanta, Sampatti, and all that for reading the Vedanta.
Yes, absolutely, very true. And as you very correctly said that, when you take Ishvara as the mediator between your actions and the result as a karma phaladata, it automatically resolves some of your raga dvesha intensity. Because when you
Yeah.
approach anything with the attitude of karma yoga, you do it as an offering, and you receive it as a prasada. So you're not that much concerned over the result as much as the fact that it's coming from Bhagwan, and whatever comes is grace. So very, very rightly said.
So the body mind starts automatically associating itself with Bhagavan, and hence the raga dvesha automatically comes down.
Yes, absolutely. I think we'll just rearrange the order because who was next? I have no idea. Amit Bhai, right? Okay, you're here. Yeah.
Should I start?
Yeah, sure. But just in the meantime, if Abhinavji or somebody else can just help out whoever has been removed by mistake, I'm not sure if they can come back. But if you can just do on the side. Yeah, yeah, please start. This is verse 9. Just read the verse and then we'll also see the translation and then the explanation.
Yeah. Okay. यम यम ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यस्तव
Oh, one
स्तवै
small suggestion I'll give. Try to put this in the shloka meter. So it's like, or the tune. Yam Brahma Varudnendra Rudra Marutaha. So, that'll actually make it much easier.
यम ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र मरुतः स्तुवन् स्तुव स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तव स्तववैदः
Prashant, shall I lead
Vedi.
this? Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, please.
Well, lead this, maybe Amit Bhai can. The only reason I'm saying this is because this used to be, when I was 11 years old, this used to be one of my when I was in national high school in Bangalore, this used to be our prayer. So I have a lot of attachments to this particular verse.
Yeah.
So it really brings out the goosebumps in me.
Absolutely. And I'm happy you were not in a so-called secular school. So
No, I was not. I was before that. My mother shifted me to all secular schools. So okay, let me Amit Bhai can.
yeah, please, you can read the Srishwanakal, the prayer.
Varunendra Rudra Maruta
Is it just me or does everybody else have difficulty
No,
hearing?
I can't hear it.
I too can't hear anything
I
actually.
couldn't hear anything actually, Shrankal.
Yeah.
Is your connection fine? If you can, or if you can read again, like none of us could hear. Let's proceed.
It on.
Ishwar, can you read again, please? We couldn't hear actually. I feel there might be an internet issue here.
Rejoin again.
Yeah, please, if maybe you can try, because your voice is
I have
50% gone.
Amit bhai, please cut off the video.
So
Should I read?
Yeah, please. And Ishwar uncle, we can come back and you can read this if your connection is back. So I'll just read this out, okay, Amit bhai, right now. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavai Vedai Sanga Padakramo Panishadair Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthitta Gatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam Na Viduh Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Yeah, please read the explanation from here, and then the next.
To the Lord, about whom Brahma, Varuna, Indra, Rudra, and the Marut Devatas praise with divine hymns, the one whom the singers of Samaveda praise by singing with a full complement of the limbs of singing in the order of Pada and Krama and Upanishads, the one whom contemplative people see with minds resolved in him in the state of meditation, whose nature the celestials and demons who do not unto him, the Lord, my salutations. The word Deva has different meanings. The root meaning is that which is effulgent. Deva can refer to any god, a celestial, or even a sense organ. The Lord is also called Deva, meaning the one who is all-knowing. Unto this Lord my salutations. Praised by exalted beings. Who is this Lord? He is the one about whom all the gods from Brahmaji downwards sing hymns of praise. In addition to Brahmaji's, the verse significantly, specifically mentions the Deva, Varuna, Indra, Rudra, and the Marut Devatas. Even even though these Devas are exalted beings, they are still Jivas, individuals, occupying special positions. Their songs in praise of Ishvara are found in Vedas.
Yes, so this is actually an interesting point, and even apart from what Pujya Samji said over here, if you see the first verse of Vishnu Sahasranama, Vishwam Vishnur Vashatkaro. So here, Vashatkaro. So the one, when we perform yajnas, we always say Indraya Swaha, Varunaya Swaha, right? So you offer oblations to the Devas in Swarga. But ultimately, it is all going to Ishvara. Because if you recall the Kenopanishad story that we spoke about a few days back, all glory of the Devas is nothing but Ishvara's glory. All glory of any Jiva in this Jagat is only Ishvara's glory. It's only a small fraction of Ishvara's glory. So, the one unto whom all the Vedic yajnas are offered is the ultimate source is Ishvara. And so that's why Ishvara, Vishnu Bhagavan has the name Vashatkaro, the one to whom all the oblations go. So the devas over here are kind of like a middleman, so to speak. But ultimately, even there, glory is offered to Ishvara. So
Prashant bhai, what is meant by here? They are still Jivas. They are Devas, but they are still Jivas occupying special positions.
okay, so every jiva is having three limitations, right? Spatial, temporal, and object-based limitations. So every jiva has the three shariras as well. So you have a Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. So just as we have it, a bacteria will also have it, and even the devas will have it. The difference is that we may have some upadhis to a certain extent of superiority compared to, say, an animal, but then the devas have superior upadhis compared to us also. So their physical bodies may have better attributes, and their mental prowess may be better. Like for example, if you see Agni, right? So Agni is the temperature principle, as Swamiji once explained. And so that is an attribute which we don't have control over, but that is an element of nature or an aspect of nature which is under Agni's control. So as a jiva, they have wider reach, they have wider capabilities, and they have just in general better upadhi. But ultimately, just like us, they are also subject to janma, mrityu, jara, and vyadhi. So birth is janma, mrityu is death, jara is old age, and vyadhi is sickness. Well, let me put it this way: they don't have old age and sickness, so to speak, in Swarga, because it is said that their bodies remain more or less in the same condition once they are. But they definitely undergo janma and mrityu, and also they undergo the pangs of life, right? Like such as sukham and dukham. Definitely, they're again them being such exalted beings, and on account of their own punya, the amount of dukham that they may experience will be perhaps much lesser than us. But ultimately, that is also a place where Brahmanandam is not there unless you're a jnani. So only the jnani experiences, or I won't say the word experience, but only jnani has that Brahmanandam, which the devas also would not have, and so they are very much limited. Now, when we talk about Ishvara, like when we say Vishnu, when we say Shiva, when we say Ganesha, and so on, here we are describing Ishvara, the Shaguna form of Ishvara. We are attributing that as these various names. So the jivas over here, which are the devas, are not equivalent to Ishvara. Ishvara is the totality, the samagra, the whole. Whereas the devas, as superior as they might be, are still limited individuals, just like us.
Okay, can we say that they are avatar? They take
Sorry,
a form of an can we say that they take a form of an avatar?
the devas are not the same as avatar. The devas are so let's think again as a very far off example just to equate it. Don't think of devas as something extremely special compared to jivas over here. Like, let's say if there was a planet or a civilization far off in the universe where things were very advanced, they had different sort of a biochemistry, they had different sort of, I won't say physical laws, but they had a different, chemical, physical, biological makeup. And they had very superior, bodily attributes, and they had very superior minds. They were like far more evolved than us. Then in some sense, if such a being landed on planet Earth, we treat them as gods, right? In the ancient times, they would make statues and so on of these people. So similarly, you can just look at devas as just beings living on a different realm of space and time, and they share or they all share more or less the same attributes of superiority, and that is how you classify deva when they live in these other realms. So you have bhur, bhuva, suvaha, maha, tapaha, janaha, satya loka, right? So these seven lokas are there. So uh, we suffer from a lot of diseases and all, whereas it is said that in some of the Purans the description of the devas is given that they don't have disease, they don't have hunger, they don't feel hungry, they don't feel these pangs that we do. So somehow there, you can say that their biological makeup is more superior than us, and then they have a lot of control over some of the elements of nature. When we talk about Avatara, which we will talk about in detail in the 4th chapter of the Gita, Avatara is very different. So but since we are discussing it, let's just get into it a little bit. Avatara is so Avatara has an apparent physical body, correct? But now the Sukshma Sharira of the Avatara is the whole totality, the Hiranyagarbha. So, how is an avatar born? Let's take the example of the Gita. So, we consider Krishna Bhagavan an avatar, and the collective prarabdha karma of all the jivas give rise to this physical body, which we know to be an avatar. You know what I mean? So, let's say if there's a situation where the adharma is taken over, and a lot of people are praying for a solution. That they pray that please get us out of our misery. We have a lot of trouble, and they pray to Bhagavan that please send us a solution. So the solution comes in the form of an avatara. So the physical body of the avatara is karmajanya, right? It is born of karma. Every physical body of any jiva in this jagat is born of karma. But now one would say that how can an avatara have a body born of karma when the avatara has not performed any karma, because there was no prior janma over here. So therefore, the body of the avatara is the collective karma of the jivas who have prayed for such a solution to come.
I
So
see.
that's how we know of an Avtara. And the Sukshma Sharira of the Avtara, I mean, it would imply there's a Sukshma Sharira. So here the Sukshma Sharira is Hiranyagarbha, the totality, the total subtle Jagat.
I see. Thanks.
Sure. The problem still doesn't seem resolved from Shalini and Smitaji, I guess. Okay. All right. So we'll go to the next topic.
Praised by scholars.
Actually, let's rotate, no, Amit bhai?
It's me next.
Yeah, Soumya.
Praised by scholars. Those who are able to sing the Samaveda, who also praise the Lord. To sing the Vedas, one must have the knowledge to do so. 6 other disciplines of knowledge are required. They are called the
Shadangas.
Shadangas. Okay. The 6 limbs. They are phonetics, shiksha. What is it?
Phonetics, Shiksha.
Shiksha. Grammar, Vyakarana. Rituals, Kalpa. Etymology, Nirkruta. Nirukta. Prosody is Chandas. And astronomy with astrology, Jyotisya. The reciters of the Samaveda with the full knowledge of these 6 limbs sing in praise of the Lord the hymns of Samaveda in the form of Pada and Karma.
Krama.
Along with the
Krama.
okay. Krama along with the Upanishad which reveal the truth of the Lord. Oh, I didn't know this at all.
So these are the Vedangas, they're called, the 6 Angas, the 6 limbs. And it's interesting to see that when we talk about Jyotisha, we're not separating astronomy and astrology as the West does, right?
Yes.
So according to the West, astronomy is science and astrology is pseudoscience. But for us, we know that the macro and the micro are reflections of each other. So I just wanted to make a note here. At least this is how I've assimilated the understanding of astrology, Jyotisha. And let's say you're born under a certain sidereal position, which is a position under the different
Star and
stars, and yeah, basically it's like a spatial position under the stars, under a particular constellation. Then you have the nakshatras, and then you're under a particular house and all, right? So there's a spatially marked position. It's kind of like you can say, it's like a coordinate system in a sense, where we look at it this way. So you're born under that particular coordinate based on the spatial location, and as the world moves and as things move through space and time, these events they tend to repeat. So there's I think Nadi astrology or something, especially practiced in Andhra Pradesh, I believe. I don't know, I could be wrong about that.
Kind of full of south.
South,
all over,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Kerala and Tamil Nadu, everywhere it is there.
I see. So then they have these, astronomical charts of all the rishis, and they have like hundreds of these palm leaves stored in, these particular drawers, and then they will see that whether does your position coincide with any of the rishis' position, right? And then they will predict your life based on like how the lives of the past rishis were, and then many times they are accurate about that. So like about 5 people will come to your place and they will start asking you questions, like what your name, your childhood, your birth, this, that, whatever, and then they will quickly jot it down, and then they will come back. They will based on the answers you've given, they will open one of these palm leaves for you. They'll present it to you, and then they'll more or less chart out what is expected in your life. So Swami Paramathananda ji was asked a question that so does astrology predict the future? It indicates the future, doesn't predict it. So like for example, if you does a planet like Jupiter influence you? No, it doesn't. It's too far away, first of all. If you're looking at it from a scientific perspective, the gravitational field and all, it's not really relevant, right? So what Swamiji said is that if you're driving down a road and your car, your fuel indicator is running red, right? It's showing empty. So that doesn't mean that the indicator has depleted the fuel in your car. Rather than the indicator is only indicating the fact that you need to refuel. Similarly, if you see a planetary alignment, that's the word I was looking for. There's an alignment in this cosmos, and it's aligned with your with events in your life. So these alignments simply tell you that these are some of the expected things that might occur, and you need to be prepared for it, right? So it's kind of like, if you see a traffic signal, when the traffic signal hits red, it doesn't mean that it made your car stop, but it would make sense that you stop your car so that you don't get into an accident. So similarly, if you see certain planetary alignments and they indicate certain things that are to occur on a wider scale for many people sharing these similar attributes of birth as you, then you know that, okay, I need to be forewarned and maybe I can take some mitigating steps towards it. So that is the way one should approach Jyotish Shastra, with a very mature mind and not like based on predictions. And the second thing is, Pujya Swamiji said that one should not worry too much about it as a Vedantin, because ultimately we take everything as prasadaha, but at the same time it is better to be prepared than not. So that is the approach towards astrology.
This is very profound.
Shanti,
Yeah.
so I have a question here. So if Jyotisha says that something is going to happen no matter what you do, I mean, so that sounds fatalistic, right?
That is fatalistic, because let's
So
put, sorry, go ahead.
So does it mean that can we put it like this? So if Jyotisha suggests that something might happen, so we should take it as that the event is likely to happen, but if you're enough to put in if you put in enough effort, you might overcome that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
So that takes into
yeah.
account the free will also, such an approach.
No, totally, absolutely. So, let's say you are born and that is when your kundali is formed, right? A person will make your kundali, they'll say, this will happen in your life. But it does not account for free will, because there are many steps that you've taken in your life as well, which will to some extent bring about a larger error margin. You know what I'm saying, right? So
Yeah.
the error margin increases with the more usage of free will. So it is said that, a lot of people who are Mangaliks, like for example, I'm Mangalik, and a lot of people I know are Mangaliks.
Mhm.
So usually people who are Mangaliks, they should marry somebody else who is a Mangalik. So in my case, that ended up being a good thing. But a lot of people, there was one, this is a true story, and maybe the sample size is small, so we cannot really generalize it. But there was a person I know who got married 20 years ago, or a person I know through somebody else, and the he had a love marriage, and the person he got married to, the charts were not compatible because of all this manglik, this, that, whatever issue. So the Jyotisha said that, everything is fine and dandy now, but your chart strongly says that within 16 years you will have a divorce. And everything was going fine, and one fine day, the 16th year, the wife divorced the guy. And then after that he became very afraid to like ever be with anybody else, because until and unless they check their charts. And I have seen this in a lot of cases. So even when you approach the institution of arranged marriage, then you see that, as you meet people, certain chart indicators are already there, and you see that this is exactly what the chart says, about the person. And it's not like a self-fulfilling prophecy also, because one should have that kind of distance, right? One should not make it self-fulfilling, but just by objective observation, I've seen in myself, in my experience, that yeah, some of these things have a strong impact. Now, the coming back to the Manglik thing, it said that after you are like 30, 35, 40 years old, the effect totally wears off. So at that point, a Mangalik does not need to bother about who they are marrying, because then it's all open game for them, because they've lived such a decently long life already that whatever effect is there, it's too small to consider. So, as you age more and more, the impact of these predictions become lesser, because of the fact that you've already put in so much free willed effort, that there's a much wider margin of error, and at that point it kind of dissipates.
Yeah, I agree to this because very often we discount our efforts towards whatever we do. So completely believing in Jyotisha might not help. We should also count our efforts because I've seen some cases where people predict that okay, this person will die at a particular age, but yeah, the person has lived for another 10-15 years. And also sometimes in our day-to-day lives we come across situations where we just say that okay, I just got saved, I was about to get hit by a car, but I got saved today. So I guess all these small efforts which we take, so that should also count.
Absolutely. The efforts will change the course of your life, definitely. But coming back to one very important point, and I'm glad Unnati raised it, which is the Jyotisha himself, right? So, you have the subject, and then you also have the person who understands and interprets the subject or the charts. Let's say you have science, which is it works on absolutism, it works on facts. I have some problems with the way some scientists think, but okay, let's just say that scientists are very objective and they're very fact based. Now, science is infallible because science basically describes the laws of the universe, and the laws are infallible. But a scientist may not be infallible. The way he understands science, what is the meaning of science, may be totally off, right? So that if you, again, I love having these discussions, but if you go back to quantum mechanics, there were 2 or 3 or 4 schools of thoughts. You had the Copenhagen school of thought, right, where Bohr and his alike thinkers had one interpretation of quantum mechanics, and then you had a different interpretation where you had Einstein, and then you had those the wave-like equations. So that was another school of thought, and there was one many worlds hypothesis, which say that for every quantum event that takes place, a new universe is born. So that's like the many world hypothesis. So what I'm really trying to say is that reality is one, and yet we interpret it so differently, and all of them are functioning realities for us. They are like vyavaharika. They allow us to function through the world, to come up with new discoveries and so on, using these assumptions. So similarly, just as any other science, astrology, Jyotisha is also a science, and over here it is not just the chart that is important, but also the person who interprets it. Swami Paramathananji very, very, very clearly said that when a person takes up to this Jyotisha, they are supposed to recite a certain number of vows. And one of the vows is that they will not charge money for it. They will only do this as a service. They will do it free of cost. They will do it for the betterment of other people. And when a person violates some of these, vows that they've taken, then the effect also wears out. So that's why you see that there are a lot of fake astrologers out there in the world today who say certain things, who predict certain things. So we cannot base the efficacy of the subject itself based on the faults of the Jyotisha, the person. So that is one error margin where things could go wrong, and then we will attribute that to a problem in the subject. So that is one thing that we should set aside. The other thing, speaking about predictions, now I know this firsthand, personally. I've seen this, that when I visited Pujya Swamiji, there was a person who was mourning basically. And I don't know, for whoever has been to the Sailorsburg ashram, there's one Gita auntie ji who more or less takes care of Pujya Swamiji and his needs. So she's his very sincere devotee. So I was talking to her, and she said that this person's brother or somebody came to the Gurukulam 3 years ago when he was like 32 or whatever. And Swamiji saw his charts. He came to like basically show him his Kundali. And Pujya Swamiji like took a moment because he doesn't like to give bad news to people. And so he basically asked somebody else to gently break it to the person that your charts say that some calamity will arise when you're 35 and it may cause your death. That guy died at 35. He went for all these diagnostic tests, and he died of lung cancer. And the way he died was because he had pneumonia or whatever as a child, and there it leaves a patch right behind on your lungs, and that patch is often or rather mistaken as to the patch that's formed on your lung due to cancer cells regenerating. But in this case, they asked him his medical history, and he said that he had pneumonia. And so they said, this is a pneumonia patch, but it was actually cancer that was growing, and they did not detect it until it was in its 3rd or 4th stage, and he died. So again, the efficacy of the subject should not be determined based on how good the interpreter is, but there's a definite element of intuition that goes into it. I'd also like to share a personal anecdote that when I went to Pujya Swamiji to do my Kundali, everything he's ever said has come true, like to the dot. So, I'm very wary about astrologers, but I have no doubt about the subject of astrology.
I have something to add to that, Prashantji.
Yeah.
Not something to add, but probably something to get clarified. So it looks like astrologers seem to use uh, data related to planets, which was gathered probably some centuries or thousands of years ago. So maybe because they didn't account for changes in the position of the planets over time, probably the predictions could go wrong. And also another point is that so when people's horoscopes are marked, so sometimes there are different there are different kinds of panchang. For example, there's something called Vakya Panchang, there's something called Triganitya Panchang. So the predictions also vary according to which panchang based on which your birth the horoscope was formed.
I see. So, coming to the planetary positions. So, what we were talking about earlier is Nadi astrology. So that is one actually very different branch. Then looking at your Kundali and your chart and this and that, they compare it to the charts of like previous rishis. So that is more like a comparison-based astrology. The other more typical one which we find is, as you said, like looking through the panchangs, looking through your Kundali, looking through your positional, you're in this nakshatra, this is whatever. So that seems very scientific in a sense to me, because definitely, as you rightly said, the positions do change because you have some phenomenon called precession. You know precession, right? Like of planets. So it wobbles. The orbit wobbles a little bit every once in a while. So imagine that you're spinning a top. The top initially it's very smooth, but then it might start wobbling, kind of like Inception, right? So, so there's a wobble, and even in the orbits and even in the rotation of planets and these motions, there's always a wobble. That cannot be accounted for. It is extremely, it's unpredictable. That's part of chaos theory, in fact, because as you add more elements into the equation, the chaos increases, and then the error margin keeps growing. So definitely, there's a margin of error which continues to grow over time. But now, when we are talking about astronomical magnitudes, things don't change in 15, 20, 30, 40 years, right? It may take hundreds and thousands of years before which you will really see an observational change. So, as you also observed correctly, that when we look at the planet Earth, the speed of rotation, many people don't know this. It used to be 6 hours. And gradually it has slowed down to 24 hours, and then it's going to slow down further in time also. But the difference on astronomical scales is so less that it within one lifetime or within 20 lifetimes also doesn't make a difference. So,
But I think I believe that astrologers are still using, for example, we didn't have accurate estimates of distance between the planets, say some 1,000 years ago. Certainly, we have more accurate estimates of distances between planets now. So, if they are still using the same distance metrics that they had thousands of years ago, so they would end up with errors, right?
So here's the thing, slight difference here. Yes, they may not have had accurate distance. Okay, so let's try something cool. So if you have an object over here, sorry, just bear with me. If you have like, okay, let's just draw the sun. You have the sun over here, and then you have the earth over here. This is like the earth over here, right? Now the distance that is here, you may be wrong about that, but you cannot be wrong about the size that you see it in the sky, right? And you will not be wrong about the measurement of the orbit, or like how long it takes for the earth to go around the sun, or at least from our perception, for the sun to go around the earth as far as we observe it. So that remains more or less constant. So the thing is that if you don't know the distance accurately, but if you know the angular velocity, so to speak, then you can get a lot of predictions right. So let me put it this way. Does it really matter for a person living on the earth, as far as the sun is concerned, whether it is earth that's rotating or whether it is the sun that's going around the earth? Not really, right? Because all you care about is you care about the position of these objects in the sky. So even if your system of calculation may be a little off, the thing is that anything in the Vyavaharik world, anything in the scientific and mathematical world is only trying to arrive at a workable answer for you. Can I work within this framework of the system that is presented to me? If yes, then it works out. So the reason why a heliocentric Earth, a heliocentric solar system makes sense today is because we are accounting for all the planets. But if you look at only planet Earth, then Earth could very well be the center of the universe for all you care, right? as far as your seasons are concerned, as far as your day and night cycle is concerned. So the position of the stars, again, like they are way far off, and they are extremely, extremely constant over large periods of time. So, so those will not really change much because they worry about the position. So you have something called Dhruvatara, which is called the North Star, right? And that has remained in the north for a very long time. There has been a slight shift, but this has been over millions of years. So I don't think that the positional variations will be as much as what you rightly pointed out, which is like differences in distances and size and all. But I don't think that matters when you look at it positionally.
Yeah, that's fine. I get your point, but I mean, I'm not totally convinced that it doesn't matter at all as far as accuracy of astrology is concerned. But I don't know. The explanation that you are giving might be plausible.
That's just another model that we have to come up with, right? To so see, these are just ways in which I have like come to terms with the way I like understand it. But then again, there could be a better explanation out there for sure, definitely. Who's next?
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah.
Praised by contemplative people. Then there are the contemplative people who meditate upon the truth of Ishvara, whom they see very clearly. How do they see? With their minds. What kind of mind? A mind that is in a state of contemplation, a mind that is absorbed, tranquil, and subtle. These people contemplate again and again with minds that are awake to the true nature of the Lord, which they have come to appreciate through listening and analyzing the Ishvara, the teaching.
We can do one more.
Yeah. Praised by others. There are people who praise the Lord as one with a form and attributes. The whole creation with all of its glories is nothing but the Lord's form. There are others, yogis, who see the Lord as formless, whose nature is not known by either gods or demons. Even though these gods are all exalted beings, they do not necessarily know that they are limitless. Being a god or a celestial does not mean that the person is enlightened. Self-knowledge is not something that comes with an exalted position. They must have a means of knowledge, a pramana, to know this truth about themselves. Thus salutations are offered to the Lord, who is praised by the gods and demons alike. The demons also praise the Lord to gain various powers by his grace, and by the singers of the Samaveda, whom the contemplative people realize in their meditations and whose glories even gods and demons do not know. Thus, these 9 verses praise the Gita in general. First, the Mahabharata, in which the Gita is praised. Then Lord Krishna is praised as a boatman, because of whose tact and grace the Pandavas were able to cross the great river of battle with all of its hurdles. The Gita herself is also praised, after which Vedvyasa, the chronicler of the Mahabharata, is praised because of whose grace we now have the Gita. Arjuna is recognized in these verses as being its nimitta, cause. Without him, there would be no Gita. Because Arjuna asked for it, we have the Lord's song, the Bhagavad Gita. Life as we know it, that is samsara, is considered to be a river of battle, Rananadi, in which people drown. The verses do not tell us how this river can be crossed, nor do they mention Krishna's grace. We simply need to understand that the boatman is Krishna, the Lord Krishna is the one whose grace enables us to cross. Having invoked the Lord's help by this prayer to the Gita, we can now commence our study. Before we begin the first chapter, we will briefly see the context in which the Gita is set and its purpose.
It's beautiful, right? This what we covered so far. I mean, look at this. We're already on page 68, and we are still not even at the introduction of the Gita. We are still, covering some of the basic ideas that Pujya Swamiji wants us to understand, including the Dhyana Shloka. So, again, I'm in complete awe of this treatment that Pujya Swamiji has given to the Gita and this commentary, to my knowledge, there's nothing in existence which is as complete as this text that we have right now. Swamiji's commentary, it's beautiful.
Yes, I agree.
And so what we'll see up ahead will be the context of the Gita. So it's just going to basically situate the Gita and see what led to the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. And it will give a little bit background about the Mahabharata war and the conflict between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. But now, before we actually get into that, and since we want to maintain the flow, let's start with value of values. And for whoever missed last time, value of values is basically covering the Bhagavad Gita verses in chapter 13, verses 7 to 11. And these talk about the 20 most essential values that a human being requires in order to assimilate this knowledge. So knowledge by itself is, when you hear something, when somebody says Tattvamasi, it's not really transformed anything, right? It's not changed anything in a particular mindset or given rise to any sort of nishtha. So a knowledge that is not digested and assimilated is called information. But we need to make that information ours. We need to turn that into knowledge, and we need to destroy self-ignorance with it. And so I strongly feel that these 20 values, if we can all assimilate this in our day-to-day lives, 95% of our work would be done. The rest of it is just understanding and imbibing the teaching. So here are some verses by Pujya Swamiji. I guess people can read it in their leisure, but let's just begin with this text. Like I said last time, this is a very incomplete text as far as the PDF goes. I think the actual book has about 130 or 140 pages, whereas the PDF has 85 pages, which is fine. It's a good start. I'll send this out to everybody. But yeah, I encourage buying it. So I'll just say a small Mangalacharan since we are starting a new text, and we'll be done with this soon, and then we'll go back to the Gita. So, Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. So I'll read the foreword. A value is a value for me only when I see the value of the value as valuable to me. This is how Swami Dayananda ji defines a value. We are not able to follow values as such as truthfulness, non-injury, etc. in our life only because we have not recognized the subtle gains that come to us by following values. We must recognize the worth of the values, and then alone would it be possible to implement them in our life. And so the main burden of the small book is to show us how valuable the values are. We must examine the gains and losses in following a value in our life, and that requires a deeper understanding of the purpose of life. We must examine our present pattern of thinking, examine the criteria that we employ in evaluating the worth of a value. Sri Swamiji shows how what we consider as gains are not really gains, and also shows what we really miss by compromising the values. Sri Swamiji also shows how conflicts are born in our mind because we have not assimilated the moral, ethical and spiritual values parceled out to us by the elders of the Orthodox without the logical and pragmatic understanding which is required in following them. This book provides an invaluable insight into the workings of the human mind, the logical basis for the necessity of values, and also the way of their implementation. Everyone follows some values or the other, knowingly or unknowingly, and so we think that this book will be of immense help to everyone, whether spiritual or not. The questioning youngsters will particularly find it helpful because it deals with the whys and the hows of the implementation of values. This book is based on the talks given by Sri Swamiji to the students in the United States on the 5 verses from chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna teaches Arjuna the 20 values necessary for a seeker to prepare the mind for the knowledge of the self. This shows how the values such as amanitvam, absence of pride, adambhitvam, absence of pretentiousness, ahimsa, non-injury, etc. have the potential of leading us to the discovery of fulfillment in our life. It is not that these values are necessary for the spiritual seeker, they are equally necessary for anyone who wants to be happy in life. These values have application in day-to-day living, and comprising them, due to the lack of understanding them, costs us the happiness we are seeking. Sri Swamiji's talks on values were transcribed and edited by Miss Barbara Thornton, California, a student of Sri Swamiji. We thank Mrs. Thornton for her excellent work. We hope that we hope the readers will find this unique book of immense help in understanding life and resolving the conflicts in mind, and thereby gain a greater share of peace and happiness in their life. So, I see. So this was transcribed in 1995, and the foreword is written by Swami Viditatmananda ji, who is one of Pujya Swamiji's senior disciples. Is anyone aware of Swami Viditatmananda ji?
No, I'm not aware.
I see.
No, not really.
No, he's a very, very good teacher. In fact, if you go to, I'm just giving you a little. This is the website one should go to. So, I sincerely recommend exploring avgsatsang.org. There are a lot of articles and audio talks of our AVG Acharyas. So here, you'll find Swami Viditatmanandaji's talks and a lot of his PDF articles as well. So I'll just paste the link for everybody who's interested. And this is a great site to do once Shravanam. Right, so Abhinavji, we're back to you.
Values and Vedanta. The 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. There are a few verses which deal with what we may call values. The Gita calls these values jnanam, which means knowledge. However, jnanam used in his sense as values is not that knowledge of self which is both the means and end of the teaching of Vedanta. Instead, in this use, jnanam stands for the collection of qualities of the mind in the presence of which, in relative measure, knowledge of self can take place, and in the substantial absence of which self-knowledge does not take place, no matter how adequate the teacher is or how authentic the teaching is. Knowledge requires three factors. For knowledge of any kind to take place, three factors are required: the knower, the object of knowledge, the means of knowledge. That these three factors must be present for any knowledge to take place can be seen by looking at everyday experiences. Take for example knowledge of sound. I, the knower, must be there to hear the sound. The sound, the to be known, must occur. My ears, the means, must be capable of hearing. All these factors are straightforward, but the third factor may require some analysis. Factor number one presents no problems. It is clear to me that if I am not there, within the range of the sound, I will not be able to hear it. Factor number two is also self-evident. If the sound does not occur, I will also not hear it. Factor number one presents no problems. It is clear to me that I think I'm repeating it. So factor number two also is self-evident. If the sound does not occur, I'll not hear it. Factor number three may not be that simple. If I'm within the range of the sound, and if the sound did occur, according to reliable reports from other hearers in the vicinity, and if nonetheless I did not hear the sound, I have to inquire into the capability of my means of knowledge of sounds, namely my ears.
I see. So this is pretty straightforward, right? So there has to be the object that is, or rather, the subject has to be there, the object has to be there, and the means of knowledge have to be there. That is what Pujya Swamiji is arriving at. So the subject is the prama. Oh, sorry, the subject is the the subject is the prama, right? Prama,
Yeah.
prameya, prama. The object is the prameya, and the means of knowledge is the pramana. So, Soumya ji or
Yeah.
Chandana ji, who is this? Sorry, would you like to try? If your mic works. We can't hear you actually. Yeah, please see if if you have a mic on your laptop or computer. Otherwise, you can maybe get an external one. Soumya ji, we can go ahead.
Yeah, sure. mind must back sense organs. When I fail to hear a given available sound, if acoustic tests show that my ears are capable of hearing that sound, the problem must be elsewhere. Where else? Perhaps I will say my attention wandered. Which means what? It means that mind was not attentively backing my ears. I was there, the sound occurred, my ears were there, my ears were capable, but my mind was not there behind my ears, lighting them up for listening. Therefore, I must add something to my understanding of what constitutes an adequate means of knowledge. To be adequate for obtaining knowledge of a given object, not only must the appropriate capable sense organ for the particular perception, eyes for vision, ears for sound, tongue for taste, etc., be available, but also an attentive, capable mind must be behind that sense organ. So far, for simple perpetual knowledge, the sense organs by okay, knowledge, the sense organs by themselves are not the pramana, the means of knowledge. The sense organs, along with the mind, are the pramana. When all facts, including the mind, are present, knowledge takes place.
Very nice. So I was actually slightly wrong about the definition. Pramata, subject. Object. Knowledge, which connects the subject and the object. So here, like for example, subject will be like the self. An object will be like a rose, maybe. Knowledge will be knowledge of the rose occurring. And here means will be the eyes. So this is the way to connect the four. So, and of course, what has to be behind all of these is the mind, right? So as Pujit Samaji said, if we all have this experience that if you attended a very boring class, hopefully not this one, but in school or college or something, then sometimes the teacher may be talking and saying things, but your mind is elsewhere, you're daydreaming. And so though the sound enters the ear canals, it does not register in the mind. It's not stored as memory because your mind is not behind your sense organs. So that is what is very important. That is like the important thing that we need to know. So the mind has to be prepared. What do you think? Yeah.
Mind must be prepared. When all factors, including an attentive mind, are present, does knowledge always take place? What if I am seeking knowledge of calculus? I find a competent professor of calculus who is a good teacher, one who has the ability to communicate what he knows. He talks to me about calculus in English, the language I know. I recognize the words. To illustrate his talk, he writes numbers and letters on the blackboard. I know and can identify the numbers and letters. I am physically able to see what he writes on the board. I sincerely wish to learn calculus. I come each day. The professor teaches, I listen and look. My mind is behind my ears and my ears. Alas, calculus knowledge does not come to me. Why? My mathematics background is shaky. In fact, I am not certain whether 7 plus 4 equals 9 or 12. Therefore, I am lacking the necessary preparation for calculus. Thus, we must add something more to our understanding of an adequate means of knowledge. It has been seen that a means of knowledge must be appropriate, capable, and backed by an attentive mind. Now, another qualification must be added. Mind, at least in some instance, must not only be capable and attentive, but must also be prepared. In order to be ready for calculus knowledge, a samskara, a certain discipline in mathematics must be established. Only then can calculus knowledge be obtained.
So now we added one more element here, right? So you need a mind. For simple cognition, just having a mind is enough. You don't having an attentive mind is enough. You don't need to have a prepared mind. Like, for example, to see the sky is blue, I don't need to prepare my mind to acknowledge that. But now, when it comes to something deeper, something more structured and something more elaborate, then definitely you need to also have a prepared mind that already has a base set up to understand and imbibe that teaching. So you also require a prepared mind, especially when it comes to what we are going to be studying ahead. So, just speaking about the 7+4, I wanted to share something very silly piece of news that occurred yesterday. Uh, uh, at the marriage venue, a girl and a guy were getting married, and she was not sure about his intelligence. For some reason, she decided to test his mathematical skills, and she asked him to add 15 plus 6. And he gave some wrong answer, like 17 or 18, and she refused to get married to the guy. So anyway, I thought that was very silly. Did you see the news?
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, that I thought that was like, you could have done that before the marriage, but okay, whatever. Very embarrassing.
Her qualification.
I doubt the qualification of the woman that she went so far with a guy whom she did not bother testing before. But so
Exactly.
By the way, that was reported on BBC.
BBC, my goodness. Then I'm sorry I spoke about it.
And it was reported on Washington Post as well.
It was what?
It was reported on Washington. The same piece of news
Yeah.
came in Washington Post as well as BBC.
I see. I think I saw it on Washington Post.
Yeah.
But I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I definitely find that whole case that they've launched against India as a propaganda attack on the image. But anyway, the Nirbhaya incident. I'm next, sorry. Words as a means of knowledge. For simple perceptual knowledge, no particular preparation may be necessary other than perhaps calling the mind to attention. When the object is there, when the eyes are open, when the mind is behind the eyes, the object is seen and the visual knowledge of that object obtains without any special preparation. However, for a knowledge such as calculus, which is gained not from simple perception, but from words wielded by a competent teacher unfolding a certain reasoning, some preparation always is necessary. For a teacher's words to work as a pramana, a valid means of knowledge, the words must be properly handled by the teacher and the mind of the student must be ready. Vedanta is a pramana, a shabda pramana, that is a verbal means of knowledge. Vedanta is a pramana in the form of words and sentences which, wielded by a competent teacher, are meant to throw light on the self. Words can give direct or indirect knowledge depending on the object involved. If the object is away from my range of experience, words can give rise only to indirect knowledge. If the object is within my range of experience, words can bring about direct knowledge. Vedanta is about me, about that which is indicated by the first person singular I. I am always available to myself, therefore words can give me direct knowledge about myself. For the words of any teaching to convey knowledge, they must be understood in the same sense as they are understood by the teacher who wields them. By the one who is using the words to impart a certain vision of the object taught, general definitions are not sufficient but carry inherent in their generality subjective interpretations. For words to serve as a pramana, their precise intended meaning must be realized. The unintended possible meanings must be negated. How does a teacher accomplish this? He establishes a context in which other possible meanings of the words are ruled out. When a teacher fails to create a context for the words he uses, he cannot convey knowledge by their use. Words then only become another form of conditioning. This commonly happens when the subject matter is self. Frequently in a teaching attempting to reveal the self, words such as infinite, Brahman, eternal are used but not unfolded. Such words, so used, only become a new conditioning, adding to confusion and vagueness in the mind of the student. However, even when you have both a qualified teacher of Vedanta, learned in the methodology of teaching, one who knows how to unfold the precise meaning of the words used, and a dedicated student who is seeking knowledge of the self, the knowledge that is Vedanta cannot take place unless the student's mind is prepared. For the one with an unprepared mind, Vedanta becomes like calculus for a person still working on his multiplication tables. This does not mean that Vedanta cannot be understood. It simply means that preparation of the mind is required. The Antakarana, the mind, is the place where knowledge takes place. If knowledge does not take place when both the object of knowledge and an appropriate means of knowledge are available to the one who wants the knowledge, there must be present some obstacle which is responsible for knowledge not occurring. The only such obstacle is the lack of preparation of the mind. This was
How
definitely a handful. There is so much to actually keep going back and reflecting on this again and again.
Yeah, it's interesting how words play a very important role in understanding.
Yeah, and since you're a teacher trainer, like maybe, if you can give us some insight more into how you relate to this.
Yeah, so when we usually teach in class, so very often it happens that, yeah, my mind says that I'm using a particular word, but sometimes the students might not understand or might interpret the same word in a very different way. So it really becomes a big hassle to again, make the students see what you are trying to say and what you are trying to interpret in that particular sentence. So if left on students, then you realize, okay, this was not what I meant. So only until the students don't clarify, it's not possible. So definitely a prepared mind is required.
That's very true. And also, like, just to take this example, right, where Bhagwan says Jnanam, he calls these 20 values Jnanam. But it takes a Mahatma of like Pujya Swamiji's stature to tell us that here the Jnanam means values. So, otherwise, based on our conditioning, we'd walk away thinking that, no, this is knowledge. Ahimsa is knowledge. Aparigraha is knowledge. So, the guru's, I won't say job, but the guru's connection with the student is to make the student see what he sees. So I may read something and I may understand something, but until and unless I've verified and I've like cleared my doubts with the guru has to make sure, and I have to make sure that I understand the meaning of the word and the meaning of the entire teaching in the same way as the guru sees it. So that alignment has to be there between the guru's understanding and the student's understanding, and that is, ultimately when the highest alignment in Vedanta is there, then when the guru says Tattvamasi, the student can claim Aham Brahmasmi. So the Tattvamasi has to become the Aham Brahmasmi for the student. And maybe there are a few more things that we can just look at over here, because I think this is extremely important. There was so much to absorb over here. So yes, the words must be unfolded, and they should not be words which mean nothing, right? That lead you in a circle. So as Pujya Swamiji is also averse to using words in his teaching such as infinite and supreme and bliss. So he has repeatedly mentioned in many of his talks that these are words that we don't use in our parampara just because it leads to a lot of confusion. It leads to a lot of like mistakes. So, for example, if I say I am bliss, right, and we usually relate to that as an experience, so that does not make sense. Similarly, if you say that okay, you are infinite and you are Brahman, but you have to unfold what those words are and not just use prior conditioning. Otherwise, you just have one more word in your vocabulary, but ultimately it will not shine through as far as the meaning is concerned in your mind. So you have to understand the words and you have to have these words revealed to you by a competent acharya who can handle Shastra as a pramana. This is what's important, that the guru must be a competent Brahma Shrotriya, Brahmanishta, preferably, who can unfold these words to you as a Shabda Pramana. The Shastra must be, his tool, and the teaching must be used and unfolded given a very particular set of methodologies that our parampara has refined over time. So, we've already gone over some of these prakriyas, right, in our Tattvabodha sessions, that you have something like the clay and the pot example, which helps you understand the existence aspect of Atma. And then you have the Pratibimbavada Chaitanyam Prakriya, and then you have the ocean and the wave example. So all of these are ways in which you both condition your mind to accept what makes sense, what is true, and also to decondition your mind from prior conditioning, which may act as an obstacle in the way. So words are very important, and the words that the Acharya use have to be unfolded very methodically.
Yeah, there was one more statement which was made over here that knowledge takes place in the mind. So, but in we were discussing Tattvabodha, we also discussed that knowledge is not the object of mind. So it's kind of
Sorry, I
like
didn't
a,
understand. Knowledge is not objectified.
yeah, so we say that it's beyond mind. We don't require the perceptions of the eyes or the sense organs. It's beyond mind. I guess that was discussed in the previous class of the initial classes of Bhagavad Gita, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, okay. I don't recall that actually, but maybe, if I can spot it later. Because
Yeah.
knowledge definitely occurs in the mind, because ignorance is also in the mind. So what displaces ignorance is this knowledge. And knowledge is also gained only through a pramana. Knowledge cannot exist independently of itself. It must be relational. That means that you cannot have standalone fact sitting in your mind, right? It must
Right.
relate to other things. Like, for example, if I say sky is blue, that is a very standalone fact apparently, but then where does blue fall within the spectrum of different colors? So, if it's blue, then I know that it's not this, it's not that, it's not this. So it's always with relationship to anything else that and all of these relationships, it's like a mental mind map, so to speak, within your mind, where you map everything out, and knowledge has its own place where the connections are drawn out. So that is what Mananam is really, where you build and you strengthen these connections. So I'm not sure I understand the context, maybe where we said the knowledge is beyond the mind, but it takes place in the mind, as Pujya Swamiji says. So maybe I'd have to revisit some of the previous chapters to verify.
I think what she means is, so this is knowledge in the context of self-knowledge, and self and Brahman is a standalone fact. The Brahman is not limited by the mind.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So yeah, I see
So
now.
I think we are getting confused between two kinds of knowledge here. So one is removal of delusion, and the notation of Brahman itself as knowledge.
Brahman itself as knowledge. Um,
So Jnanam, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma.
oh, that okay. I see. Yeah, knowledge principle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the word, yes. Um, so when we talk about jnanam with regards to Brahman, we are talking about non-object based knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, Pujya Swamiji uses this example that he holds a flower and you say, I have a flower in front of me. So there is knowledge of the flower, but you take away the flower, what remains is knowledge, but the knowledge of no particular thing, right? There's no perception, there's no inference, there's no nothing really. And there's not nothing, but there is only pure knowledge. So yes, that is Brahman, definitely. The knowledge principle is Brahman, that in the presence of which things can be known. That is the consciousness, that is the jnanam we are talking about. So it is in the presence of the field, this jnanam that we call, where any object introduced is known. So the mind also can be known to the mind, right? So there's somebody who's a witness of the mind, witness of the thought modifications, witness of your dreams. So that's Sakshi Chetana. That is again reflected consciousness, but again you're an intermediate knower in that sense. But then from the perspective of pure knowledge, only jnanam, then yes, then definitely what you say is correct.
Yeah.
It does not take place in the mind. That
Yeah.
knowledge.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, I see. Thanks for clarifying.
So you can say the mind is in the knowledge rather than knowledge is in the mind.
Yes.
As far as self-knowledge is concerned.
Yes. Very true. So yes, yeah. So now I see what you're trying to arrive at. Object-based knowledge takes place in the mind, whereas the mind is present in this, for lack of a better words, field of knowledge, right? The all-pervading consciousness. So that in the presence of which object-based knowledge takes place is the consciousness.
Yes.
Abhinavji? Or is it? Yeah, I don't know. Are you next?
I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
Soumyaji is next.
Soumyaji, are you next? We can do one
No,
paragraph.
Sabina.
I think it is Abhinav because the circle goes back to him now.
Oh, okay. I
Oh,
see.
we're just four of us
Okay.
today, I think. So we'll be getting our chances early.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So where are we? Jnanam prepares the mind for Vedanta. What prepares the mind for the knowledge that is Vedanta? Practice such as pranayama, certain breathing exercises, and asanas may be useful in quietening a restless mind, but they do not prepare the mind for self-knowledge. Jnanam, according to the Gita, prepares the mind for Vedanta. Jnanam can be defined as a state of mind which reflects certain universal values and ethical attitudes. Other practices may bring about a mental quietude in which the necessary values are more readily established, but only discovery and assimilation of the values themselves constitute preparation of the mind. Values alone prepare the mind, all else is secondary. Therefore, the Gita raises the appropriate values to the status of knowledge, terming them jnanam, a word that means knowledge. However, the jnanam of values and the knowledge that is self-knowledge must not be confused. They are not the same thing. The jnanam of values is preparation for the gaining of self-knowledge. It is not that when mind enjoys the appropriate values, knowledge of self occurs, but that it then can occur without appropriate values. It cannot occur. Can you go down? Appropriate values present, self-knowledge may or may not be present. Appropriate values present, self-knowledge can be gained. Appropriate values absent, self-knowledge cannot be gained.
Yeah, this is good to reflect upon. And as we know it, Pujya Swamiji always clarifies our doubts later on. So anything to discuss around this? Okay, I guess if that's clear, shall we do one more section or should we continue next time? I think
we can do one more.
okay.
Next one.
I think this is a subheading, right? So I think the main heading. So okay,
Then we
let's.
can do it next time.
Yeah, I was just thinking it'll be like a good place to start.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, thanks. This was a great discussion, and I'm really happy to be studying value of values with you all. So just close off on that. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Jagadish ji, if you want to stay back, we can just test your mic maybe.